Concealed behind ancient bricks was a void still full of glass shards. These were photographic negatives discarded over the last 150 years, pictures that were imperfect, where the photosensitive emulsion had not been applied evenly, or the exposure had been off, or the subject had not liked the image and asked for it to be destroyed, or lovers who no longer loved each other couldn't stand to look at it. Failed and imperfect images found their way into this haunted void where they piled up in obscurity. Angela and Louisa were the custodians of this place that claimed to be the oldest commercial studio in the world and had worked there for decades. They led me into the low, damp basement in this now crumbling Victorian building to see this glass hole that they had accidentally uncovered while inspecting the building's foundations. I have many antique hard drives, data shadows that can no longer be connected to modern computers that resemble a digital version of this glass hole. The largest glass hole on Earth is located across vast warehouses spanning acres of Mojave Desert and moored off the Pacific coast in banks of hard drives, cooled by the warming oceans that service the cloud. Angela and Louisa had discovered something archaeological that spoke, as it often does, as much about the future as the past. Recalling the sand deposits on the North Sea beach, some deep, silty memory had been swept in by time here, a glitch in the landscape now excavated. Some shards of glass were almost completely blank, but many still had images embedded on their surface. The intersection of these failed and unwanted portraits, with their razor-sharp edges, created new images, reframed by the indiscriminate and brutal act of discarding them in a hole, yet producing something new and unintended. Photographs, to be meaningful, must be products of history, and that history is haunted by chance. I was there to meet James and Tandika, and when they arrived, I immediately took them down to the glass hole. It had a magnetism that kept drawing me back. James and Tandika run youth workshops together. It's a self-styled form of social activism inspired by their own life experiences. James had been a musician, but found himself incarcerated after his crew were accused of buying thousands of copies of their own album with stolen credit card data downloaded from the internet. He was charged with fraud, lost his teaching job, and ended up in Brixton prison. But through an engagement with the prison radio station, he thrived and is now back to teaching and doing youth work with Tandika. The couple brought with them their own glass hole, a box containing hundreds of photographs, newspaper and magazine clippings of black Victorians. The representation of 19th century black culture is overlooked in school learning, they told me, and they wanted to change that. They had staged an impromptu exhibition in their own living room, which was so good that it moved to one of the galleries in the City Museum. Together we sorted through these archives. Many South Asian migrants were photographed at the studio after moving to the UK in the wake of partition, and there is a storeroom of images in cardboard boxes of young men having arrived wearing props of watches, sometimes 2 watches, to stress the point of their economic success. Success that they would send back to their families before their families made their way over to Britain. In the studio we uncovered a frayed, painted backdrop of a ship deck, a bygone symbol of luxury sea travel, colonial expansion, or the dark history of slavery. Photographs, to be meaningful, must be the products of history, and that history is haunted by chance. The chance encounter of James and Tandika, with a studio full of these windows into memories, the shadow of the glass holes that lurk in all our minds.